Please. Thank you. I now welcome the Electrical Trades Union WA branch, Australian Manufacturing Workers Union WA branch to give evidence today. For the Hansard record, would you please state your name and capacity which you appear before the committee? Thank you.
Daniel Graham. I'm here as a delegate for the AMW.
Thank you.
Steve McCartney, State Secretary of the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union.
Thank you.
Simon Brzovnik, Organiser for the Kwinana and South West area of WA.
Thank you. This hearing is a legal proceeding of the Parliament. The giving of false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as a contempt of Parliament. The evidence given today will be recorded by Hansard and attracts parliamentary privilege. Before I invite you to make a brief opening statement and we proceed to discussions, would you please state if you're a current or former member of a political party or a union or an investor in the renewable or nuclear industries, please?
Yep, I'm a member of the AMW.
I'm a member of the AMW and a member of the ALP.
I'm a member of the ETU and a member of the ALP.
Thank you. I now invite you to make a brief opening statement before we head on to discussions.
Thank you. I appreciate getting the opportunity to speak today because we've been, this is a long journey so far in the Southwest. I remember when I first come down here to have a discussion about renewable energy and green manufacturing. It was in 2007 when Kevin Rudd was saying we need greenfield manufacturing in brownfield areas so that we could ensure that there was more jobs for the future when and if it changed. Back in those days, half the people in this table were climate deniers, and we weren't. We understood what was going on, and we wanted to make sure that we had the discussion with our members. Now, that was a meeting in the town hall here, and to be perfectly honest, it wasn't my best meeting I ever had. I got told there was 150 years of coal left in the ground, that we shouldn't be thinking of anything else but coal. That's what started the conversation. That was in 2007. And we've been having this conversation for quite a while now. And it reached a head when we got told that the government was thinking about moving the Muja power station and shutting it down. We had more town meetings after that. So this is what I like about this transition from coal. It's not like every other transition from coal. It wasn't a top-down approach, it was a bottom-up approach. The people in town, we had meetings in town, started off with just our members, and then more and more people turned up. And all that's on record, it was in the West Australian, etc. And we had those discussions about what we need to do in a transition, to the point when our Premier at the time come down to here and said, this is, we're going to be shutting Muja, rah. It wasn't about how much coal was in the hill. It was actually about what are the jobs, how quick is it going to be, and are we going to get educated? I think if you go and look through the town, talk to the people in the Shire Council or the local people here, you'll know that that's been dealt with. We've got an opportunity to get educated to go forward. We've got if you want to get a job here in the future, you have to go to the TAFE and they'll get you into a job. We've got positions in play that look after workers when they become under retirement, when those jobs fall away in the end. And what we're fighting tooth and nail to make sure and get through the government process is to make sure that we have startups around about the same time as we have closed downs. And that will give us the successful transition we got. I'm here today to talk against this because we know that by the time this idea goes forward in any real way, we'd already missed the opportunity to do green steel. We've already missed the opportunity to have green manufacturing off the back of it, because 20 years in the future, it won't be there, and we'll be that far behind. At the moment, the world is accumulating already. First world Europe, all around the place, is already going green. They already know that green manufacturing is their future. If we wait around for another 20 years for that to happen, we won't have manufacturing in this country.
Thank you, Steve. Simon?
Okay, I thought I'd just start off with, prior to joining the ETU, I've got over 2 decades of employment history working in coal-fired power stations, oil-fired power stations going back even further, gas-fired generators, diesel, for all your big, tier 1 mining asset, energy-intensive mining operations. And look, the risk is, like Steve was saying, that nuclear is going to delay the transition that's undergoing right now. We have put a lot of effort into working with the state government, the federal government and unions and workers to try and get training in place for a transition into the new future. The LNP's nuclear fantasy deliberately creates policy uncertainty, sowing chaos and putting projects on ice today. The last thing Australia needs is more energy uncertainty after the previous decade of Abbott, Turnbull and Morrison's deliberate and purposeful delays to renewables, which dried up investment in new generation, drove up energy costs. The LNP's nuclear fantasy will destroy thousands of jobs and lead to major energy shortages because nuclear is too slow and the taxpayers and power users will pay the bill for decades. The ETU has been working hard with other unions, businesses, state and federal governments and local industries and a plan to transition out of Collie out of coal. The Collie Just Transition Plan means members will be supported to retrain so they can participate in new job opportunities that are flowing on from renewable energy transformation in Collie and in the regions or into retirement. ETU members are getting jobs today on major renewable energy projects. With many more in the pipeline, renewables and grid-scale batteries will create jobs for thousands of additional workers each year. Acionia's Bellwether Wind Farm is to be built out the back of Collie. It starts in 2028. It will deliver 3 gigawatts of wind power. This will provide 400 long-term construction jobs and over 100 full-time jobs during the project's initial 30 years. The project will provide drought-resistant income to farmers, support local towns and business opportunities. Additionally, the project would be able to provide power to existing businesses seeking to decarbonise their operations. A 3.2 gigawatt offshore wind project is proposed off the Bunbury coast. It is planned to commence by 2030 with thousands of construction jobs, over 200 permanent jobs when in operation. The proponent of this project will also be using local companies to manufacture turbine components, further value adding to Australia and the local economy. A Dutton-led LNP has already said they will end offshore wind, right? Full stop. The Collie Green Steel project is slated to start construction next year. It will use renewable energy to create green steel products for the Australian market. This will bring construction jobs and, once completed, permanent ongoing jobs for Collie residents. BHP and Woodside have got a partnership to build a massive green hydrogen plant in the Kwinana industrial strip. They've got the land, they're ready to go. The only thing that's holding them back, there isn't enough renewable energy. You can't make green hydrogen if you don't have green energy. South 32, Worsley Alumina and Alcoa are both wanting to decarbonise. They can only do that with cheap renewable energy. The LNP to date have not released any detail on how a nuclear reactor of any design could safely operate in Collie. There is one glaring, inescapable technical problem: the lack of water. The southwest of WA has had a year-on-year declining average rainfall for decades, and this trend is continuing and accelerating. The reduction in rainfall forced local alumina producer South 32 to construct a pipeline from Wellington Dam to the refinery so refinery operations could be maintained. Prior to that, all their water fell in their catchment and filled their own freshwater lake. Serious questions remain around water consumption and waste storage. Cooling water is critical to the safe operation of a nuclear reactor, and if the worst should happen, as it has before, water will be the only way to prevent a catastrophic failure of a reactor core. A 1 gigawatt nuclear reactor consumes nearly 100 times more power than the same size coal-fired power station. The same 1 gigawatt reactor would require 27 tonnes of enriched uranium fuel per year, and that needs to be stored long term. Will the radioactive waste be stored on the proposed site in Collie? If not, where in Western Australia will this waste go and how will it be transported? Which regional town will become the toxic dumping ground of Dutton's nuclear fantasy? In conclusion, nuclear delivers too little, too late, and is far too expensive and carries a lot of risk. The risk is not only environmental but economical. With global energy demand expected to double by 2050, Australia has the opportunity to become a major renewable energy exporter, exporting clean renewable energy as either hydrogen, ammonia, or through undersea cables directly into Asia. Australia is best placed Australia is blessed with everything it needs to become a renewable energy superpower if we choose to do so.
Thank you, Simon. We'll start with you, Mr. O'Brien.
I'll defer to Mr. Kennedy to get started. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Is it
Brezovnik.
Brezovnik. Sorry, Mr. Brezovnik.
That's all right.
In the ETU submission, it says nuclear is going to drive up power bills. Can you explain? Can you tell the committee which analysis you're relying on for that conclusion?
I'm sorry, I can't tell you which analysis. I didn't write the report.
Or who did write the ETU's report?
I don't know.
So you're from the Electrical Trades
I'm from the
Union
WA
here today,
branch,
the WA
union,
branch.
and I'm an organiser, right? So I deal with people on the ground.
Okay, so we don't know who wrote their submission.
Just
Yeah.
let me
No?
in here. We have the submission from the previous time the ETU spoke to us when Mr. Murphy spoke with us. That submission he spoke about, he tabled that, I'm pretty sure. Is that right, Deputy? Is that right, Secretariat?
I'll have to check that.
Yeah, all right. If we could check that, but I'm pretty sure it was tabled, that submission.
Yeah, no, I'm referring to the submission where they're saying nuclear. I've got their submission in front of me.
Yeah, but their actual where they got those figures from is tabled.
I haven't seen it. I've not seen that and I'm not aware of that. It's concerning for me you're not familiar with the ETU submission nor where the analysis comes from, but we'll move on. Are you supportive of, I take from your evidence you're supportive of the Labor Party's plan to decarbonise?
I am supportive of the push to decarbonise. Yes, it is. You know, you look at the state of the world and the state of the planet and the health of the planet. We can't continue destroying our planet the way we are. We do need to change.
But you're not supportive of the coalition's nuclear, but you are supportive of Labor's ISP step change scenarios. Do I take that as correct?
Yes, I'm not supportive. I can't support anything the coalition has put forward because we don't actually know. At the moment...
Okay. No, but my question is on the Labor Party submission. So on Thursday in Sydney, we heard from Sol Griffith, who was the Chief Scientist of Rewiring America. He's also been appointed by this government as the Chair of Rewiring Australia. You were just talking about hydrogen and how much you think we're going to rely on it, green hydrogen, green steel. He gave evidence on Thursday in Sydney that he believes hydrogen will never be economic.
I'll correct you right there. I never said that we'd be reliant on hydrogen. What I said is that we could export energy as hydrogen or as ammonia, and if you know what ammonia is, NH3, it's 3 hydrogen atoms and 1 nitrogen.
Sure.
It's easy to export. It's no different to LNG, right? You're getting some form of energy and exporting it somewhere else, or we export electricity.
Yeah, we heard evidence from Sol Griffith that unless we can make hydrogen, whether we're exporting it or using it locally, for below $2 a kilo, it won't be economic, and in his view, that would never be economic. I asked his view about the ISP, Labor's plan, relying on hydrogen in the outer years. He said that won't happen. Why do you have a different view from Mr. Griffith? And if you do agree with him, what should we be doing to supplement green hydrogen?
I don't see green hydrogen personally, right? Personally, I don't see that as like, you're not going to be driving green hydrogen cars, I don't believe. But I do see there is a possibility that green hydrogen could be exported overseas for an end user to then turn that into another form of energy.
We just heard it wasn't going to be economic. Is there specific analysis you're relying on that you would contradict Mr. Griffith's evidence we heard last Thursday?
No, there isn't.
No, okay. Well, if we take Mr. Griffith's evidence, because I haven't heard different evidence on that in the committee yet either, what should we be looking at substituting if we are worried about some of that long-term, and we are worried about gas too, if you're worried about decarbonisation, gas is of course not carbon-free. Why wouldn't we look at safe nuclear? Look to see if nuclear could be safe to supplement that.
Well, the first thing I'll bring you back to, right, is your proposal for Collie SMRs. They don't exist. There isn't actually a single commercially viable SMR reactor on the market today. That's what you've proposed for Collie, right, and South Australia, and in your own modelling, that was never included. That was deliberately excluded from the modelling you released a couple of days ago. So I'm only here to talk about Collie and WA, and all that's proposed at the moment for WA is an SMR reactor. Let's say, what's that, 350 megawatt, 400 megawatt. That is only a drop in the ocean of the power that Western Australia needs. It is a ridiculous amount of money for very little energy output. It makes no sense for Western Australia. And as you've heard, not only briefly from what I led in my intro speech and to the other panellists, there is a major water issue in the southwest. How will you operate a nuclear reactor in the southwest?
So are you aware, we've had a Stanford study from 2017 tabled where it's saying on average a nuclear reactor uses as much water as a coal-fired power station. Are you aware of that study that the committees? Yeah, so we have had that
Even still, right?
Study tabled.
Even still, right? Blue Waters, coal-fired power station here in Collie. This is the only privately owned one. They have 2 units, 220 megawatts each, I'd say. At the end of last summer, they had to drop load by 20% because they were running out of water. Now remember, if the coal-fired power station runs out of water, you just turn it off and you're eating dinner by candlelight, right? But if a nuclear reactor runs out of water, you can't just turn it off. You've got to keep, the core retains heat. You need to keep water going in there. You need to keep cooling it. It's not just turn it off and you walk away.
Are you aware there's now technology that has dry cooling in nuclear reactors?
And none of it is commercially available today, right? These are all...
Are you saying green hydrogen is commercially available today?
We have been making hydrogen for a long time. We know how to make green hydrogen.
Where is green hydrogen commercially being made today?
Well, let's take the green out of hydrogen, right?
Where is green hydrogen being commercially made today, is my question.
What I'm getting... let me try and say, like, hydrogen, we can make hydrogen right now. There's 2 ways to make it, and we know the technology exists, right? You either get the dirty way, which I used to work in a plant in the nickel industry where we made hydrogen. You get coal seam gas unodorised, and you strip the carbon atom off it through a reformer, and you get hydrogen, and you pump the CO2 straight up the state. That's the dirty way.
I guess my...
Right, just hold on.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in here, please? Can we bring this back to the nuclear debate? Not
Sure.
a hydrogen debate.
No, but the question is, if we're relying in the ISP on a huge amount of green hydrogen coming in that's uncommercial, and what I'm getting to is why wouldn't we be looking at all technologies on the table? If we're worried about decarbonisation, we're worried about gas. I'm being a little bit facetious, but if we have technologies that aren't viable, why would we not look at a balanced mix, particularly when we've heard evidence that actually from the US DOE, 77% of people can transition from coal to nuclear. We've heard those jobs are 14% more, 50% more than solar. Why wouldn't we be looking at that when we understand there's threats to some of these? So why wouldn't we be looking at a balanced technology mix to keep all options on the table, particularly when they're higher paid jobs, particularly when there's opportunities to transition? Why would we not be looking at that when you can't name a single commercial green hydrogen plant?
Okay, I'll answer that by saying that we can have renewable energy. We don't need hydrogen. Hydrogen is a byproduct, another industry that could potentially flow on from renewable energy, right? And renewable energy exists now. We can deploy it very quickly, and it solves our immediate energy needs. Nuclear does not exist, like the stuff you're talking about. It's not commercially viable. It brings him back to a movie that Keanu Reeves starred in 1995, Chain Reaction, I think it was, right? Nuclear fission's been around the corner. It's every 10 years it's going to happen, right? So in another 10 years it might be here. In another 10 years, well, we've got a problem right now where we need to solve our climate emergency and energy needs, and these sort of nuclear reactors are not going to solve it.
Thank you, Mr Kennedy. Mr Burnell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for all coming along to provide evidence today. I want to take you to the Coalition's nuclear policy that they dropped in on the 19th of June earlier this year. So it's been 7 months, just shy of 7 months since the announcement on Friday, of all dates, the 13th. Must be something in that.
My birthday's on the 13th.
But what I want to get to is, it's been 7 months. Collie's been slated for a small modular reactor. It clearly states in here on page 3 that the Muja power station, Western Australia, SMR only. I think we heard on the previous panel, the panel before, the Shadow Minister said, there's no technology being decided on at this point. My question is to the whole panel here. It's been 7 months. There was an announcement on Friday. Were you expecting to have more detail announced by the Shadow Minister and the Leader of the Opposition regarding plans for Collie, what type of reactor you were going to get, the length of time for the build, when it was going to come on and provide power to the grid. Where was your expectations about that announcement on Friday?
I think that announcement was some more fairy floss, to be perfectly honest. I think that we're talking about January. We get told, by the way, we're going to have a nuclear power station here. We've heard little or nothing since. A couple of town meetings, I think, around the place. One had 50 people in it. The other had less, is my understanding. I think that this is like trying to fast-track something. You know what I mean? That isn't actually can be fast-tracked. So we're talking about it now. It's coming up to an election soon. All we have to do is keep talking about it, then people might vote for it, right? But at the other end of it, I'm sure that's when they'll start working it out. And we've got no confidence in that. I did a tour a long time ago up the centre of Northern Territory and went to every one of those mines, right, where the life expectancy for Aboriginals is 48, etc., right? The amount of water that leached into the pool at Jabiru, right, it's documented, right, is dangerous, right? Every step of it. It's a bit like, a long time ago, our union went to all sorts of lengths to try and stop asbestos because it was dangerous to dig up, it was dangerous to travel, and it was dangerous when it wore out. And I've got a feeling that nuclear power is exactly the same. When nuclear power goes bang, people get killed and you never go back. Ask the people at Chernobyl. Right, are they back there living there? No. Right? Do you want anything to go wrong here, to this pristine environment now, with people that have lived here for 100 odd years? And what do you say then? I'm sorry, it's not my fault. Blame the manufacturer. I think it's terrible.
Look, I think, first of all, Ted's comment earlier to another panel that, the coalition isn't picking anything. Well, you are, because you're deciding to blow $300+ billion of taxpayers' money on a technology nuclear. I haven't seen the coalition go, well, we're going to invest $300 billion in renewable energy, right? And the question's got to be asked, and you've got to be honest with Australian, why are you doing that? It's not because you want to keep the lights on. You just want to delay the rollout of renewables, keep coal burning longer, and put our future at risk. I don't actually think you genuinely care about the environment. That's my feeling. And look, I can tell you, my kids, they suffer anxiety because they're going, why should I bother going to uni and doing this? You guys have already trashed the planet. I can't buy a house. What kind of future will I have? We've got a problem to solve now, and nuclear is not the solution. It's too slow.
Thank you.
Final
Have you got anything else to add, Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So from myself, I guess being the local, I am the local here. My journey doesn't go back as far as Caesar 2007. I was working at Muja Power Station then, but I had head in sand. 2020 it became real, closures, change. Don't know much about nuclear, so I'm not going to pretend I do, but I do know we need to change. We need to go cleaner. We need to, leave this earth to our children's children, better place. The thing for me, and in my role at Muja now, I'm the contractor transition coordinator, so I'm tasked with looking after Collie Power Station, Muja, all the contractors there, and helping them transition. And when we talk about their futures, when I had that conversation with them, the biggest concern for them is the timing. It's like, hey, I've got a closure date here. I've been told I'm finishing, but what am I going to? What am I going to? And looking at the nuclear timeline, I'm just not sure how that matches up and how that's going to help Collie. I think we need to be looking at new industry, manufacturing. We're good at doing it in Collie. We're good at getting our hands dirty. We're good at making stuff, and we're pretty happy to take it on board if it's going to come to us. But we've got a couple on the hook. We just need to get them over the line. But timing is everything, because if we don't get the timing right, people are going to go. The town's going to suffer. And I just want this town to continue the way it is.
Can I just briefly add to that question, right? Michaela Cash came out a little while ago and said there won't be a nuclear reactor built in WA until at least 2050. Right? That's just ridiculous. We don't have that kind of time, right? That's one of your own political party members.
Senior ones.
What's that?
A senior one.
Yeah, a senior one, correct. And at least she's from WA, I suppose. But, it's...
To talk about that.
But look, what have you got to say? Is she wrong? Is she incorrect in coming out and saying that?
Final question, Mr. Bennell.
And thank you for that. I want to go to these town meetings. There's been a lot of discussion about these, and I think there's a bit of conflicting information. What I would like to know is, have these town meetings, have they been open forums or closed forums? And has there been a community-wide invitation where any member of the public can turn up and have their thoughts heard and express their concerns or get more detail on the...
Our first meeting was purely members, right? Then we asked them to go back to their social clubs, their footy clubs, everything, right? And we put a broad scope to everybody.
So this is in relation to these nuclear town hall meetings that have been held?
Oh, no, well, no one went. Only 50 people went to them.
But was that an open forum that was opened up to the entire community, or I'm seeing a lot of heads not shaking here, saying no?
What I'll do is I'll answer that question for you, right? So, maybe some people like to scroll TikTok, read a book. I enjoy getting into Facebook groups, and I'm a bit of a political tragic, so I follow their political pages, and I follow a lot of the Liberal ones as well because I like to know what they're up to. And I saw a little thing come up saying Peter Dutton was coming to Collie. They're having a public consultation. I thought, sweet, I might go to this. And then when I went on the website and looked, I had to pre-register. I had to register the questions I was going to ask. I wasn't allowed to ask any questions without notice. It was very scripted. And I didn't end up going, right? So what's the point? It's so controlled, and it wasn't open to the public. It was literally you had to register and be given permission to attend. That was very disappointing because I was looking forward to being able to ask Peter Dutton some questions.
So ticking boxes, but portraying something different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bennell. Mr. Chester.
Thanks, Chair. Just on a slightly different tack, but related to the broader question we're dealing with the inquiry, we've heard other evidence that Australia already has a small but capable nuclear industry, or part of the nuclear economy supply chain as it is, in relation to nuclear medicine, AUKUS, and helping other countries decarbonise through the export of uranium. Is it your view that those industries should continue, or are you against all forms of nuclear activity in Australia?
I'm happy to have an answer at the Lucas Heights reactor in Sydney. It's, what is it, 20 megawatt or something? It's tiny, right? And it is only for medicine or research use.
So you're not opposed to nuclear medicine?
I'm not opposed to nuclear medicine,
Okay.
right? Why would I be? Why would I be
some people are. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. Why would I be opposed at something that's going to help people?
What's your view of AUKUS then? Is the ETU got a position on AUKUS?
My personal opinion on AUKUS, I think it is the biggest waste of money ever. What is it? $330 billion, right, that we're transferring of public wealth to America, and we may never see a sub.
That's your personal view, not the
Yep.
ETU's view? That's your personal view, or the ETU's view?
The ETU's view. Sorry?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yep. No,
It's the ETU's view or your personal view?
that's my personal view.
And in relation to the evidence we've heard that the export of uranium from Australia, we're one of the top 3 largest exporters of uranium in the world, is helping other nations decarbonise quicker, and given we're talking about a global challenge here, what's the AMWU or ETU's view about uranium exports?
Oh, the AMWU's got a straight up and down. Same as what I said before. It's dangerous to dig up. When you dig it up, you have to. When you're working there, you have to wear a monitor to make sure you don't get it affected, right? When it leaves there, you have to get the okay from every Shire council from there to the drop-off point, and every one of those has to be ticked off. I don't know why. It couldn't be because it's not dangerous.
So the AMW's position is no uranium exports from Australia?
It'd suit me, absolutely.
No, I'm just wondering if that's the position.
That's my position.
Okay. ETU?
I just want to bring you back, right, to a bit of context around here. Some countries, like Japan, for instance, as an example, nuclear makes sense. They don't have land, they don't have a lot of renewable energy potential, right? For Australia, nuclear is not the right choice. We are blessed with so much land, most of it unusable.
Thanks,
right?
Thanks, Mr. Zolny. That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to
But
understand
what you're trying to do is you're trying to say that, well, these other countries are using nuclear, so we should, but you're not giving context to why they use nuclear.
No, I'm not trying to say anything. No, sorry, sir. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just trying to understand your position, whether it's against nuclear energy in its entirety anywhere or different aspects. And so the AMWU is opposed to uranium exports, so it means it's opposed to all nuclear energy anywhere in the world. What you've suggested to me there is in other countries it does make sense.
and other countries where they do not have the opportunity or potential to produce renewable energy because they don't have land or they don't have enough sunshine, yeah, of course, you've got to look at other options, and that is nuclear. But Australia does not need nuclear energy.
So your view then is not specifically related to Collie, it's Australia in its entirety. The ETU's view is Australia in its entirety doesn't need nuclear.
The current ETU position is no to nuclear energy, yes.
Not just in Collie.
Correct.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Chester. Dr Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. I was interested in the comments made about the wind farms outside Collie and the fact that they would generate ongoing employment for quite a number of people. There's been some concern, I think, that installation of wind farms results in employment only for a short period of time, and that after that the people who install them move on and there's not many jobs in the area. Can you tell us how that works and what the ongoing workforce is engaged with?
I guess the easiest way to think about it, right, the wind farm is a rotating machine, and anything that rotates needs maintenance. So wind farms will need ongoing, mechanical maintenance and electrical maintenance for their whole life. No different to a coal-fired power station, a nuclear power station, a gas turbine or any other piece of mechanical equipment. That there will be ongoing maintenance and operational jobs.
Thank you. And I was also interested in your concerns regarding, alternate methods of energy production. And I think many people have concerns about hydrogen and whether or not it's going to be a commercially realistic alternative to other forms of renewable energy generation. Do you have any thoughts regarding any other industries or other potentials for long duration energy storage other than hydrogen? You mentioned ammonia.
So ammonia makes more sense to transport purely because it's safer, right? So ammonia is, NH3, so 3 hydrogen atoms and 1 nitrogen atom. So what you can do is you can produce ammonia using renewable energy, and you can transport it to the other side of the planet. You take the hydrogen away, and then you can use that. You can burn it, do whatever you need to do with hydrogen, and then the nitrogen, that's fertilizer. So that's just a safe way to transport it, whereas hydrogen's actually pretty dangerous, just like LNG or something else to transport long distance.
Yeah. Is there any local expertise in mass production of ammonia in WA?
Ammonia isn't very hard to produce. There is a new urea plant actually it's just commenced construction up in Karratha. The nickel industry, where I worked previously in Queensland, we produced ammonia, a lot of it, because it's used as your sort of like in the alumina industry, they use caustic. In the nickel industry, they use ammonia, and that's what dissolves the minerals to extract it. So ammonia. People have been producing ammonia for, decades and decades. It's not a new, unknown technology. It's old. It's proven. It's just energy intensive.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so it's very energy intensive. And what about, are there any specific safety concerns around its transport, acknowledging the fact that there's very significant safety concerns around transport of hydrogen?
The worst thing about ammonia, if you were to get a spill, is the smell, right? But it does dissipate. But essentially, if you were to pour ammonia on the ground, it's virtually just fertiliser. So if you where I used to work in Queensland at Queensland Nickel before Clive Palmer bought it and destroyed it, if you looked out the back of the tailing dams and everything where all the leftover waste went, for about 10 kilometres either side of that refinery, it was rainforest. It was actually unnatural because in towns it was more bushy. But because of the little bit of ammonia that was left in the tailings, it was fertilised and it was always wet. It was like a tropical bloody oasis in the middle of normal bush. So ammonia is generally pretty safe. You wouldn't want to be stuck in a confined space breathing it because obviously it'll hurt. But it's not intrinsically bad for the environment. It will dissipate. Yeah. Plants will use it as fertiliser. It's not a drama to clean up.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Ms. Mascarenhas.
Thank you all for being here and presenting today. I can see that there's a lot of skills and experience on your side of the table. That's not a comment on this side of the table. So one of the things that I see in this debate is I think that often WA is overlooked and there's a poor understanding of what's happening in WA. It's interesting that from what's been proposed, it's SMR, small modular reactors that aren't commercially available, but there was economic analysis that was released last Friday by Frontier Economics, but that's for the national electricity market. And I think that some people think the national electricity market includes WA, but I know that we in this room know that it does not. And so it's a continuation of ignoring what's happening in WA. I also know that there's been so many years of work of what's been going into Collie's just transition, and I see it as an amazing story that needs to be shared across the country. And so my question is do you think that this is a genuine process of looking at what is the future for Collie, or is it just a ploy for distraction and delay of renewables, but also what's some of the great work that's happening here in the southwest?
The great work that's happening here is there's been a lot of consultation with the whole public of the place. Everyone knows where we're heading, right? I think that was the most valuable bit. The community consultation was really important. We didn't leave doors locked and say you have to give us a series of questions before you come in. Everyone come down to the Oval, and it was raw, and it was a lot of letting of emotions when you know things are going to close. And about the third meeting, it started to get back to what are the practical answers. And what we were looking for, we weren't looking for politicians. What we wanted to do is make sure we had a way forward for the town, so when the politicians arrive, we could tell them what we wanted. And that's why I think that's the power in this transition. This transition it's people power. People inside of Collie have gone out in the streets and said, yes, we want this. We want this to happen now, right? And first of all, it was no, no, no. We don't want change. No one likes change like this. But one thing I can be sure of is that when those green energy jobs do take off here, they wanted jobs that created jobs for their kids. So the first step in this transition is those jobs that look after the people that are coming off the mine. The downstream green manufacturing jobs are ready and willing and able to be the next step for the youth of Collie and the southwest. It's a transition, when you think about it, it's not just a transition of Collie's power, it's a transition of how the southwest economy works. And that's why it's such a big piece. And it's taken quite a long time to do it. And to have disruption in the middle of this, all it really does is make investors concerned about where they put their money, right? Then they're never going to have a nuclear power station in Collie. They just want votes in Collie.
I'm also interested to understand kind of the electricity producers around Collie at the moment. And so could you give me a back of the envelope estimate as to all the coal-fired power stations, what their power is, but also can you remind me the size of the large renewable wind project that's happening in the back of Collie, but also the offshore project as well?
Final question.
Yeah, so I'll just be estimating here, but let's say it'll be 2 gigawatt, maybe a little under, of coal capacity in Collie. The wind farm that's going in the back of Collie starting 2028 is 3 gigawatt, and the offshore wind farm that's proposed, we're pretty confident that it will go ahead if the political landscape doesn't change. It's 3.2 gigawatt. But that's of a possible 11 gigawatt that's in that envelope that could go in there. So technically, if those 2 wind farms are built today, they would be able to power half of WA right now. So a nuclear reactor that is slated to get built sometime between, let's say, now and 2050, more likely towards 2050, and only produce, let's say, an SMR, a maximum of 500 megawatts. It's only a fraction of the generating capacity.
Thank you, Ms Mascarenas. Dr Molino.
Oh, thanks very much, Chair, and thanks very much for your evidence. I joined partway through, so apologies if some of my questions double up on anything that's already been discussed. But I just wanted to ask about some of the issues with decommissioning both power stations and mines. And one of the reasons why the coalition has a policy structured around putting nuclear power plants at the end of existing transmission lines is that it will purportedly save on transmission lines. But one of the complications, of course, is that if you have huge plants and huge mines there, the decommissioning can be extremely complicated and take a long time. I'm just wondering if there are any issues around that are likely to surface.
You want to answer?
We have a bit of a plan for the decommissioning of Collie, and we've had a discussion about it. There's going to be X amount of people in Collie that have got a good set of skills that aren't quite ready to retire yet. And we see those people working in that space about the land reclamation and getting that sorted out. What we really want to make sure of is that their children get the training that they do need for the industries that turn up. Now, mine reclamation at the end won't have too much of an impact on the amount of people who are going to go to the new industries, because they're quite comfortable operating machinery until they knock off, right? And there's going to be a fair bit of work involved in that, making it happen. So I think there's half a generation of work there, like to get that finished and turned back into the facility it should be. I think that those people that are going into retirement see this as their opportunity to get a bit of work at the end, and pave the way for their children and their children's children to do that work in the future.
Just to jump on the back of that, Steve, some of the work that I've discussed along the way is about mapping our people where they are, where they want to be in the timeline. Myself, come 2029, Muja closes, I've still got to work, unfortunately, and I need 15, 20 years work. There's highly skilled people there that are probably going to struggle to get into new industries that are going to have that timeline of ongoing work for 20, 30 years. But they might just want to work for 5 years, and that might be what it takes to decommission a plant. So that's why it's so critical to get the timeline right and the mapping of the people into the right positions. And we need to start that now. That needs to be happening.
Thank you, Dr Molino. I've just got a couple of quick questions before we end. The stated Liberals' energy plan is one where baseload nuclear power, which they say will operate with a 90% capacity factor, supports renewables. As someone who represents workers in a coal-fired power station, Stephen, who has experienced a role of baseload power and as well as renewables, can you explain whether you think the renewables and nuclear are compatible, and whether a renewables heavy grid, noting the Libs want 54% renewables, can effectively be supported by baseload nuclear power? That's to you, yeah.
Yep, it's incompatible. Nuclear power stations have the exact same problem as coal generators, right? They are commissioned and designed to run at 80+%. That's their most efficient window. Once, say, a coal-fired plant starts dropping down, you increase wear, valve wear, maintenance costs go up, they become unstable, they trip. So this is the problem we have at the moment, is we're getting more renewables in there, and especially in Western Australia, we get on cool days, we get so much solar energy coming into the grid that the coal-fired generators become unstable. They ramp down, and we have issues of them tripping off, or they can't, or they just got to turn off. And the worst thing you can do for a coal-fired power station is turn it on and off, up and down. That they're literally designed to be turned on and left. And nuclear, I'm not a nuclear physicist, but my understanding is they're designed in a similar fashion, where they're designed to run at a certain output, and below that they're unstable and hard to keep operating. So with 70%, 80%, 90% renewable energy, it just doesn't make sense. So what you'll end up doing is, to run that nuclear power plant at full load or 90%, you're going to have to limit renewable energy input. So you'll be turning off wind or turning off rooftop solar, so that you can keep that model. That'll drive the cost of energy up, because you're now filling the market with the most expensive form of energy production and turning off the cheapest. That's the problem with nuclear.
Just following on from that, an SMR is spoken about for this area. The SMR manufacturers say that they can be ramped up and down. Do you know anything more on that?
Again, I'll go back to there isn't a single commercially available design out there, so they can say whatever they want. But there isn't actually any engineering, anything available where you can go, well, I can take that off the shelf and build it, and it's proven. It's all a fantasy at the moment. I did read something, I can't remember if it was it Rolls-Royce? So it's one of the American companies where they've only got 2 engineers left working on their SMR design, and they went to the American government and said, we want you to fund it. And because the actual company said it's not worth us having our own engineers in there doing the engineering because we know it's not viable. Without taxpayer support, SMRs will never, ever get off the ground.
Thank you. And just one final question. Do you think it's acceptable that the Coalition are giving workers here false hope that they can walk into a nuclear job?
I think it's a disgrace. I think it's actually disruptive. It's taking away people that are sitting on the edge of investment here, now wondering if they're going to be mucked around for the next 10 years while people talk about something that doesn't exist. And what that will do is start making investment more difficult and actually helping to ruin the transition. Because when those investors walk away, then we've got no support.
Yeah, and when I look at like members and just employees working up at the coal-fired power station, most of them will either be retired or no longer with us by the time a nuclear reactor is built. That they won't see a job out of it. So it's false hope. Like if they're thinking that in 3 or 4 years' time there's going to be magically this SMR is just going to appear out of nowhere, it's not going to happen.
Do you just want to add to that, Daniel? Because you do leave here, so...
Yeah, thanks. Look, and again, I just go back to the timeline. That's the biggest conversation we have with our members is that they are worried about the timeline and having those good paying, union agreement jobs to go to on the closures. And that's just constantly, it's a conversation. I mean, I could do all I can in my role to help them transition by providing training and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, the same question keeps coming to me is what are we transitioning to?
Thank you for your time today, guys. If you've been asked to provide any additional information, including questions or notice, please forward it to the Secretariat by Friday